I like the first, no, I see it. Ami, what's it like to be the mom of two amazing kids? It's fabulous, Tim. I'm kidding.
Yeah, like I said, hard-hitting, in-depth stuff. All right. Welcome to the Parents of High Achieving Students podcast, where we talk education with parents, students, and educators. My name is Tim Pruney, and I am your host. Today, we have some very special guests, Ami, Nicholas, and Natalie Vaughn. The Vaughn family received over $500,000 in scholarships and is a great inspiration to families, as well as having some practical tips. So, Ami, what's it like being the mom of two amazing kids?
Well, really, really proud of them, Tim. And I think it's great. They're both very independent. We wanted to make sure that was an important trait that they both had. And hard workers. We always told them, nothing comes easy and they've got to work hard at things. So I'm really proud of them. And like what, I don't know if you had mentioned the amount of scholarships that they received, that was over $500,000. Combined. So we were just really, really proud and very thankful financially,
Right.
because I mean, as you know, college is so expensive nowadays, especially depending on what college you go to, whether it's a public university or a private university, in state or out of state. So, we're very proud of them.
Awesome. Yeah. And Nick, you're in med school, right? We were talking about this
Yeah.
before. So what's the biggest difference between med school and like your undergrad?
Oh man. So a really common, I guess, metaphor that everyone uses for med school is like learning in undergrad is like drinking from a water fountain. And then learning in med school is like trying to drink from a fire hydrant, where there's just too much water and it's going way too fast. And if you hit it wrong, it's gonna, smack you in the face. It's a lot more information, a lot faster, a lot of memorization, which was very different than my undergraduate degree, which was in chemical engineering.
Oh, wow.
So it was a big shift. It was very exciting, pretty difficult, I would say, but definitely doable.
Yeah, wow, especially after engineering school. That's not easy in and of itself.
Yeah, they're two very different forms of challenging, I would say. Med school's more about memorization and pattern recognition, and engineering's a lot more logic puzzles and thinking your way through like sort of difficult problems and trying to find unique and creative solutions.
Nice. And did you do your engineering school at UNLV as well, or did you go somewhere else for that?
I actually went to University of Alabama. I was really fortunate to get a full ride scholarship there through the University Fellows Program. So that's where I ended up doing my engineering degree.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Natalie, we were talking, you're down there in the South as well, right? You're in Tennessee?
I'm currently in Tennessee, yeah.
How'd you get down there?
Well, you know what? I also went to undergrad at University of Alabama, and just ended up through the career fair meeting with one of the companies that was located in Tennessee, and just ended up moving here after undergrad.
Awesome. And you got a lot of scholarships too, right?
Yes, I got full tuition and got $240K in scholarships total.
Ooh, nice. And then you got a job right out of college, like they just hired you on the spot.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that's amazing. So for both of you, were there any like scholarships that were especially challenging or competitive? You guys mentioned you both got full rides, plus you got another $240K, huh?
Yeah.
I will say, I think it's, oh, please, you go first.
No, you go first. You go first.
All right. Well, I will say, I think it's a little bit difficult as an applicant sometimes to get an idea of how challenging or competitive a particular application is. We don't necessarily know how many people are applying, but I think it's definitely fair to say that a lot of times for a lot of scholarships, the more money that's on the line, the more applicants you're typically going to get. So yeah. I think that one piece of advice that I would definitely give to any students that are looking to fill out scholarship applications is aim for everything, because a lot of times the smaller scholarships are what ends up adding up to those bigger amounts. And you can a lot of times couple those with your full tuitions and full rides, and that's very useful.
Oh, that's really smart, right? So like stacking those $500, $1,000 scholarships can add up because not as many people are going for them because everyone wants that 20K or that 50K. So there's a lot of low hanging fruit there that can add up. That's a really good idea, actually.
Correct. And even just in
Yeah.
terms of paying for your textbooks and the other additional stuff you're going to need for college, it's really nice to have that on hand.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah, I agree. Sort of all the small things like textbooks and stuff you don't think about is a lot of what gets you sometimes for undergrad. So that's an awesome point. I would say in terms of, I guess, the most competitive or most difficult scholarship for me, I got for me it'd be the full ride through University of Alabama.
Mhm.
They had a very intensive application sort of interview process that was very holistic, which was awesome. We had to first sort of apply for the school, apply for the program, which is called the University Fellows Experience. It's through the Honors College at the school. And I know a lot of undergrads, like they have like their honors colleges have sort of similar type programs that offer scholarship packages. But getting into the program is very difficult. It was, a lot of essays. They had an in-person interview, like a formal dinner with like all the other applicants, like a full day of interviews. It was
Wow.
very involved. Yeah, it was super exciting, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the few who was picked to receive a full ride scholarship. But it was it was a very intensive process. There are a couple of other schools that do similar things, and so for the other schools too, they have the same sort of deal where you go, you meet the other people in the program, you do like a full day of interviews, things like that, and it's all in person, or at least it was. I don't know how it is now with COVID, but that's I guess I'm assuming that's sort of the process for scholastic sort of full ride scholarships.
Yeah. And so that was based primarily on your high school achievements, right? Do you
That's
guys
correct.
remember that far back?
Yeah, it was a little bit ago, but remember a little bit, bits and
Like
pieces.
what were your like test score, and Natalie, for you as well, like what were your test scores and like GPAs, like any like crazy classes that were different than you had expected?
Man, it's a good question. GPAs, I think. So okay, I'm thinking of undergrad where like a perfect score was like a 5 or something, but then in high school I think it was perfect was like a 4.0.
Yeah.
So I think I was like, yeah, I think I was like 2 or 3 tenths off of a 4.0, so maybe like a 3.7, 3.6, 3.8, somewhere in there.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, I know a lot of it was doing really good on the standardized tests,
Yeah.
because I feel like like where you go to school and what classes you take have like a massive influence on your GPA. So not everyone takes the same classes, not everyone goes to the same place, but everyone takes the same, SAT, ACT,
Mhm.
what have you. So I, at least in my experience from talking with people, and then in terms of being on the application committee in undergrad, a lot of it is going to be that first hurdle is to get sort of whatever that minimum test score is to get your foot in the door, and then after that, then you can use all the other stuff that you've done to help make yourself shine.
Yeah. And you guys both took some classes with Prep Expert, right, to get the SAT scores up?
Yeah.
Do you remember like how how it started, kind of like that meme, like how it started with the SAT, and like what the what your starting points were and what the sections were, and like compared to like how it was at the end when you finally finished and got those scores that helped you get those scholarships?
I can't tell you the exact numbers, but I do remember the biggest thing for me with those courses was there, like any standardized test, there are tips and tricks and strategies and shortcuts to get, the easy questions out of the way faster, get the harder questions right more often, because it's a time test. The most important thing is, the easy stuff, get out of the way and get it right. And then that saves you time to actually focus on the hard stuff and hopefully get that right too.
Smart. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Natalie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's about it. I'm not going to lie. I'm in the same boat on remembering exact scores and score improvements. It has been a while.
Yeah. And dude, I don't remember what I got in high school either. As part of my job, I have to take the test again and again.
Oh,
to get some
man.
of the changes.
And I was going to interject and just say that it has been almost 10 years ago, but I do remember that both of them scored well enough that both of them got national merit commended.
Right.
But what I think that's really important with that too, and neither one of them were perfect 4.0 GPAs, but they both, in spite of not being, 4.0 GPA, perfect GPA, or, national merit scholars, still got over $500,000 in scholarships. So there are scholarships that are out there. It's just for students and for the parents to help the students look at that. But I do want to reiterate, like what Nicholas was saying, that the standardized tests really seem to be the most important because it's standardized throughout the nation. And I'm really thankful for it was then 2400 expert with Sean Patel, but it's now, I believe, called the prep expert.
Yeah, because they changed the scoring. You guys both took it when it was 2400 with the mandatory essay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those are no longer the same.
They just got rid of the essay like 2 years ago.
Oh, thank God.
One of the things I was going to say for the national merit scholarships, and even just prepping for the SAT and ACT, a lot of people don't realize the PSAT is the most important to determine whether you're going to be a national merit or not. It's the PSAT, not the SAT. So if they can get their kids, where I would put the money in is getting into a good prep program, like Prep Expert or any other program that, people are doing research on that can help those kids do well in those standardized tests. Because when you look at, even if you Google universities with guaranteed scholarships, it's going to be based on what the ACT score or the SAT, and then they'll say, oh, GPA has to be a minimum of 3.0 or 3.5. So I would put my money on the ACT or SAT, depending on what your kid is going to do better in.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah, it's obviously better to start early. And what's interesting about the PSAT is there are a couple different levels. Now, the 11th grade PSAT NMSQ2, that's the National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. Like they've made the name longer. Like it's PSAT and then more, because there's a PSAT 10, which is in the spring. That's like a separate test, but the test you're talking about is the most important one, is that 11th grade, the one in October, the PSAT NMSQT.
Yeah.
They keep adding letters.
Wow, that sounds not at all complicated and not difficult to keep up with at all.
No.
That's too many letters. No one knows what's going on. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but we all just call it the PSA. If you say the PSAT, that's the one that we're all talking about. Because I had a parent ask me the other day, is like, can she take the PSAT like in 10th grade? And I'm like, well, there's the PSAT 10, but it's a different test. It's at a different time of year. It has nothing to do with the National Merit Scholarship. Like it's still good to get a gauge, and I'm sure there's opportunities for it as well, but it's that PSAT NMSQT that in 11th grade in October, that's like the big money maker for that National Merit Scholarship.
Right.
Awesome. So Nick, we were talking before about UNLV. So first of all, that's a very new med school. So you're like the third or fourth graduating class, right?
Yeah, we're going to be the third graduating class. I'll be excited.
That's exciting. And did something about engineering school just burn you to where you decided to do a complete change, or like how did you fall in love with medicine?
I actually went into undergrad with the plan of being pre-med. Yeah, and I really enjoyed physics in undergrad. I really liked chemistry. I liked biology. So I kind of rolled up the first day to the counselor's office and I was like, hey, what sort of major combines physics with the other sciences? And they're like, oh, engineering. And I was like, oh, great. I was like, I'm also pre-med. They're like, oh, okay, you should take chemical engineering because, you take chemistry in both of them and that'll transfer over well. Spoilers, it didn't. Would not.
Oh no.
I would not recommend combining both of those if you're, I would say just do one or the other. Doing both is just a lot more pain than you need if you're just trying to go straight to med school. But if you're trying to do engineering, just do engineering. You could save a lot more time in your undergraduate career. Do more extracurriculars, do some community service, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's smart. I was talking to Tom Riley, who was the chancellor of NSHE, like the Nevada higher education thing. And he said like one of the biggest issues is kids come in and they don't know what they're going to do and they change their major so many times. He actually like rolled out like an app for CSN to where like they made sure that they did these personality tests and career goal tests beforehand so that they don't end up changing majors 6 times. Kudos to you for sticking through dual pre-med chemical engineering. That's a feat.
Yeah. It was exciting. But the benefit with that at least is, if I didn't get into med school, I had engineering, which is a fantastic fallback to have.
Yeah. If you're gonna have a fallback, right?
Right, exactly.
Awesome. So Amy, you must be really proud of both of these kids. Do you have any advice for moms whose kids are still in high school?
Yeah, I think encouraging the kids, nowadays it's so much harder if you're trying to get scholarships. I think as a parent, if you can help your kid, they're just overwhelmed with so much, right? The standardized tests, regular school, being a normal teenager, the stresses from that. So I think that if you can help them out, a couple of things. One is if you're really going to be serious about this and think about applying for scholarships, apply for FAFSA. And my recommendation a tip that I've always told some parents is, listen, don't wait until April of the year that you're applying for FAFSA to do the application. Do it in November or December. So you've got your password, you've already set up your account. And then just put your tax information from that year. And then the following year, just amend it with whatever, if there's any new changes with your tax information. And the reason for that is all of the scholarships will ask to see that you've applied for FAFSA, at least the ones, I believe that most of the ones that Nicholas and Natalie got, the big ones, had asked to make sure that they had at least put in an application for FAFSA. So that would be one. Another one is, find out from your kid, sit down together and figure out what kind of school do they really want to go to. I'm going to give you an example. One of Nicholas's friends, when he was still, I think, a sophomore, when he was a freshman, freshman or sophomore, in one of the parent meetings, a couple of things. One of the older sisters of one of the kids that Nicholas was in class with, I don't know if you remember this, this was during the recession, right? The big recession. She graduated from Princeton, $320,000 debt, no job, because it was a recession, right? So you really got to think about finances and really think about, do you want the name brand school? Because the reality is there's tons of great schools. Look at Nicholas, he got into medical school. He actually, I don't know if you know this, Tim, he got a full ride to medical school. So in addition
to med school too, wow.
Yeah, so now he's going to when he graduates next year, he's going to graduate debt-free, no undergraduate loan, no graduate school loan. I mean, that's kind of unheard of, I think, right? So, so we're really thankful for that. But also, but he did a lot of research in his schools. He looked for schools that would offer, some amount of scholarships. He worked really, really hard, to get his grades. But, not everybody's going to have the same advantages of, getting, almost a 4.0, like Nicholas is saying, he's like a 3.8 or 3.7. But one of the things too is, most importantly, I think, is that, that test prep for that SAT and ACT. As a parent, if you can put any money so that you don't have to pay for all those applications to apply to so many schools, put the money in investing in something like the Prep Expert, or back then it was 2400 expert.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is sit down with your kid and find out, look, what do you want? Do you want a small school? Do you think you'll be happy with a big school? Do you want to live rural or in a city? People don't think about things like that. And one of Nicholas's good friends, well, one of his classmates went to a school back east, got a full ride. And after the first semester came back because he was homesick, right? Full ride to a really, really prestigious school.
Yeah.
And he, but if they maybe would have talked it over and said, hey, do you think you're okay moving that far away? Are you going to be okay living in a rural place where there's really not much compared to living here in Las Vegas? Oh, yeah, no, I'm good. Or no, I want a school with 60,000 students. Or no, I want a school that only has 1,000 students. It'll help narrow down, and that way you don't have to pay so much for all the applications. And then I would really encourage parents. There are so many websites of scholarships. There's a scholarship if you're a redhead. I just saw one. There's a scholarship if you're for the zombie apocalypse scholarship. You don't have to have any GPA. You don't need any letters of recommendation. It's a $2,000 scholarship, and you just have to write an essay of if the zombie or apocalypse happened, what would you do to save your school? Right? I mean, it's amazing. Or if you're redheaded, right? $500.
You need to send me the info about the redhead scholarship because all of my nieces and nephews are gingers.
Oh, just look it up. Just Google redhead scholarship and it'll come right up. Yeah, it'll come right up. So there's so many scholarships that are out there, but I think it's hard for the kids to really do all of that research, plus write their essays, plus do the SAT prep, plus regular homecoming and midterms and finals and school, right? Regular homework, and then being just a regular teenager to hang out with their friends. So if you can either work together, maybe in the afternoon or, on a Saturday or whatever works out best for you, once a week, getting together and saying, hey, you know what? Let's go look at what colleges will offer automatic scholarships. There are actually colleges just like University of Alabama, University of Arkansas, UNLV, just to name a couple, that will automatically give you a scholarship if you have a 3.5 GPA with whatever amount for your ACT or SAT. And it's an automatic, full tuition scholarship. So any amount would help. You know what I mean? And it's really finding out those schools. Most of those are going to be Midwest or in the South. Going to California it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to get a scholarship coming from Nevada. So, that's the advice that I would give to parents. The FAFSA, look for scholarships, help your kid look for the scholarships. And if you can, put the money into the test prep, whether it's the, what is it? The prep expert, or again, I keep on calling it the 2400 expert. That's what it was called 10 years ago.
You guys are the OGs. That's the name. That's the name from the Shark Tank days. Yeah.
But but that also saves you on, applying to a whole bunch of different schools, right? Because that way you don't have to apply, like a lot of people are saying, I'm going to apply to 30 to 40 different schools. You can limit it to just 15 or 10 or 6 that is going to give you scholarships guaranteed because you got this grade on or this score on your ACT or SAT, and you have above a 3.0 GPA, then it's automatic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And you actually reminded me of something when you mentioned like the investment, right? Especially like to get that full ride. Like we have a special coupon code at prepexpert.com, right? It's prepexpert.now, not 2400 anymore because they got it's only a 1600 again. Back when I took it, it was a 1600.
Wow.
Then it was 2400. Now it's back to 16. So it's prepexpert.com. But anyone that uses the code podcast will get a discount. And Prep Expert now has one-on-one tutoring for like hundreds of subjects. Like they can actually help with your physics and your chemistry now, and your geometry and your calculus and all that. So you can use the code podcast-TD, like touchdown, to get a discount on the one-on-one tutoring as well. So thanks for reminding me about that. Sorry, my mom just walked in. Say hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Oh, she's a joker. Anyone else have anything else to add?
Yeah, you know what? I do want to hop in and say we've talked a lot about how just SAT and ACT test prep can be a significant influencer on the amount of scholarships that you get. And that is very true. But I would like to say that I think that for both Nick and I, we both mentioned we did not get perfect scores in either GPA or on the SAT or ACT. And we did very well, and those prep classes definitely helped with that. But if you are a student that for some reason cannot afford a test prep course, because not everyone is in a place where they are advantaged to do that, and you aren't able to get into a test prep course because you can't get a scholarship for it, or there's just not one that's affordable nearby, you're still going to be fine. Study as hard as you can. But one of the other things that you can really do when you're prepping for those scholarship applications is make sure that you focus on the experiences that you've cultivated throughout high school. If you've done anything like you were in marching band all 4 years, or you were in orchestra, or you were a mathlete, or you were very focused on volunteer work, those experiences are all going to be very valuable in both your college applications and your scholarship applications. So if you take 3 of those meaningful experiences and you write them into pre-prepped essays, a lot of them are going to be asking you about like just very much the same kinds of questions for these scholarship application essays. So if you have just 3 sets of essays that you have on rotation that you can use to apply and just kind of tailor them to the individual scholarships, but you have them prepped beforehand, that's going to be very useful. And even if you're not able to engage in extracurriculars because you have to be supporting your family or anything like that, those experiences are also very meaningful, and they can be very useful to scholarship committees. So make sure you write those out in your essays because those make a pretty big difference. One of the other things too is, Tim, I think you mentioned how a lot of times what contributes to the overall cost of college is when individuals end up switching majors repeatedly. And I do want to say that personally, I'm of the opinion, when you go into college, you don't necessarily need to know what you want to do, but you do need to make sure that if you're not sure what you want to do and you're not sure you're going to be sticking with a major, make sure that you are going to a college that is going to allow you to switch majors relatively easily. Because I do know of several people that I went to high school with that went to colleges that, for whatever reason, it was very difficult to switch majors. Either the counselors would be very much in opposition to it, or even if it's your first time switching majors, it becomes very difficult to register for classes just because of the timelines. I know some people that have stuck with the same major all 4 years through, and based on the college they ended up going to, and these were brand name schools, it took them 5 to 6 years to graduate just because they could not register for their classes because they got capped out. So keep that in mind when you're applying to different colleges. Try and meet with some students in your intended major and try and get an idea of what the actual experience is like on campus if you can. One of the other pieces of advice I would give, if you're trying to save money by not switching majors, go to the career fair as soon as you possibly can when you get into college, because once you actually start to take on those internships and get some real work experience, you're going to get an idea much faster of whether or not you're actually in a field that you want to be in permanently. So, and I mean, of course, you can always switch your job once you graduate college, but it is very useful to have both those internship experiences on your resume, and it's a great way to tell whether or not you actually want to be in that field.
Oh, those are all great insights. Like I think that's a perfect note to end on, because you covered a lot, you filled in a lot of the gaps I think that are super important. The extracurriculars, the what to do if you can't, as well as like I experienced that in my own undergrad situation, right? Because I remember certain majors would require like X number of humanities, and then other majors don't require any humanities, but they need a social science. So I think like that level of planning that you just described is actually, critical, Natalie. So thanks for adding that. That's huge.
Absolutely.
All right. So I appreciate you guys. Want to respect everyone's time. Plus my mom is saying it's time for dinner. So thank you so much. This has been the Parents of High Achieving Students podcast. We've had the Vaughn family, Ami, Nicholas, and Natalie. Thank you so much, and see you guys in the next one.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.